Jerry Abrahams,
Here.
Cynthia Butts, Wendy Clark, Commissioner Dahm,
Here.
Phil DeFranzo, Heidi DeWeingart,
Here.
Claudio Gualtieri, Timothy Hodges, Catherine McKinnon,
Here.
Commissioner Mosquera Bruno,
Here.
Commissioner Perez, Franklin Perry, Chelsea Ross, Sarah Sanders,
Here.
Lisa Tepper Bates, Greg Galde.
Here.
Hey, I see Claudio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Claudio, sorry to join a few minutes late.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My apologies for calling you to a special meeting, but we have two items that we need some approvals. And but first, before we do that, I think, John, do we need to do the public comments?
No, we do not have public comments at this meeting.
Okay, great. So let's just go to the two items that we have. One is a resolution regarding our new program that CHFA will be running if it's approved by the board, the middle income workforce housing. And we didn't want to wait until September because the staff is ready to go. So the reason why we are right now calling a special meeting to present the resolution and the program, and Pat will do that. And the second resolution after that is a technical change on one of the developments. Since we are having this meeting, we didn't want to hold that project to move forward because it's a technical change, and Pat will go over that. So Pat, could you present the first resolution, please?
Sure thing. So as the commissioner said, the first resolution before you is for the authorization for CHFA to enter into a memorandum of understanding to administer the state of Connecticut's workforce housing program. You'll recall at the retreat in June, Hazim and I presented a detailed description of the governor's workforce housing initiative. We spent about an hour going over. We had a rigorous question and answer session at the end regarding the terms of that the program. The program began in February with the governor when he made his first announcement about his budget and policy proposals to expand access to workforce housing to residents of Connecticut. At that time, DOH approached CHFA to begin the design and coordination of a program. Since that time, numerous conversations have been had with commercial lenders and the market rate development industry. And over the course of time, staff has created the program terms that were discussed at the retreat and are attached to the draft memorandum agreement as Exhibit A. While these terms have not been finalized, it is expected that there won't be many substantive changes. The chosen strategy is to develop partnerships with lenders who already have market rate multifamily projects nearing the end of their financing stages. Participating lender will execute a participating lender agreement with CHFA, which among other things will require the lender to share all due diligence and underwriting materials that they've collected with CHFA. This will eliminate duplication of efforts and costs. It will also ensure timely processing of loan requests. CHFA will be able to close these workforce loans either contemporaneous with the primary lender or shortly thereafter. In either event, the loan will be able to close prior to the final equity contribution by the GP. Just a quick review of some of the terms. They are again in the exhibit, but these are construction and construction to perm loans up to 36-month construction period. The permanent loan is a 40-year amortization with a 20-year term. The restrictions will remain in place for the life of the loan, but a minimum of 6 years from the date of receipt of the certificate of occupancy. The maximum amount per workforce housing unit will be $125,000, and we'll be offering that at a rate of 1 to 3%. There's a lot of discretion built into the terms, and a lot of it is going to be dictated upon the differential between market rate rents and the restricted rents. This MOA is very similar to those that we've done in the past with DOH. It describes the commissioner's authority to enter into this agreement. It describes the authorization of the $200 million to administer what is termed a revolving loan fund to finance workforce housing. It describes DOH's selection of CHFA to administer the program on its behalf. And as mentioned earlier, it has Exhibit A, which really sets forward the program criteria, design, and parameters. The MOA provides for compensation to CHFA for the administrative costs of the program in the form of origination fees of not less than 0.75%, and from annual interest collections of 0.5%, and the reinvestment of the fund proceeds. Upon approval, it's anticipated that the MOA will be executed. A notice of available funds will be issued. Meetings will be held with the lending industry. Commissioner Perez has been very helpful in helping us to identify potential lending partners and facilitating those meetings. And the participating lender agreements will be finalized and executed with several lenders. We currently have a draft participating lender agreement. We're just finalizing some of the terms with it, and we'll be running it by some of the banks. All this is targeted to occur by mid-September. The commissioner is scheduled to bring the first allocation request to the State Bond Commission at the end of September. I believe it's September 29th. We anticipate our first loan closing should be into mid to late October, depending upon how quickly we get the funds. I just want to finish up by saying the program has been very enthusiastically received by everybody, by lenders, by developers, by housing advocates, by the board members at the retreat. It's this substantial funding dedicated. The substantial funding dedicated to this program is a wonderful demonstration of Connecticut's commitment to ensuring that there's housing affordable to everyone across the income spectrum. We at CHFA are very pleased that we've been asked to administer this program on behalf of the state. So I ask that you please approve this authorization.
Thank you,
Any
Pat. Can I first, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll move. It's Jerry.
I'll second it, Heidi.
Thank you. Questions?
I just have one, Pat. I assume that the rate is inverse to the amount of affordability. In other words, more affordable rates, the
yes.
lower the rate, right? I just want to make that clear.
Correct. With one caveat, Heidi, it could also be that you're in a very strong market that has very high market rate rents. So we may have to, in order to make this attractive to a participant, we may have to actually go the other way and provide limitations at, say, 120, but a rate of 1%, because the rent differential will reduce income so much that it may not make sense for a developer. So that's why we've got discretion built into that, because each project, the characteristics of the location of each project and the rent structure in each project is really going to dictate how we structure each of the deals.
Okay, well, we'll see it as it goes through. So
Yes,
I appreciate that. Okay.
Hey, Pat.
Yes. Hi, Jerry.
I'm sorry, it's Jerry. It sounds like an awesome program. What is the maximum loan size?
The maximum loan size is $125,000 per unit. We do not have an aggregate cap. We determined that the more units we get, the better. It's unlikely financially it would make sense to do more than 20, or, you know, I don't know that we'll get more than 20% of the units. You start to get a diminishing return on it. So we're doing a minimum of 20% of the units and 125 per unit.
Thank you.
Any other comment or question?
Anticipate being in around the 5 million, probably on average, you know, $5 million, somewhere in that range. That would be a 200 unit project, and there's not a whole lot of projects out there that are larger than that.
But we'll take as many units they'll give us.
Absolutely.
Any other comment?
Well, or how about if a project that's sort of currently underway or in process? I mean, is that going to hamper our ability to provide this financing?
No, we've got the flexibility built into this so that we can, if a developer or even the lender decides that this is a good program for the development, they can approach us. We can execute. If we don't already have a participating lender agreement in place, we can execute one. They can then transfer their documentation over to us, their due diligence and their underwriting. We can do that. We can do a quick underwrite on it. You know, if we have all that information, it'll be very easy, and we can turn around a closing in no time. So we'll even consider something that has just converted to perm, if they're willing to put the restrictions in place.
I'm assuming the banks get CRA credit for this, and that's appealing.
Yes, and we're dealing with some banks that are committed to the communities as well. It's part of their sort of their DNA.
Sure, yeah, but there's another reason, right?
You know, yes, you know.
Alexandra?
Yeah, can you just, Pat, can you just walk us through the affordability compliance component there? Does that mean, I may be reading this wrong, does that mean that if there's a prepayment after 6 years, which I think is the minimum, that the units would no longer be deed restricted, or what does that translate to?
Yeah, so you'll also notice that remember that it says draft across there. There's a typo in there that I spotted after we sent it out. It says 6 months instead of 6 years. But we'll clean all that up before the final. So,
But so the intent is, but forgetting the typo, the intent is still that some of these projects could no longer have affordability requirements if the loan got repaid after 6 years.
Yes. A couple of things here, Alexander. The expectation is that our money is going to stay in since we will allow subordination through a refinance. A lot of these projects, I'm sure you're aware, refinance after 4, 5, 6 years, get their equity back. We would be willing to stay in the deal. They're not going to, most likely, we're not going to get paid off on because of the beneficial nature of our terms, a 40-year AM and a 1 to 3. But if it were, we would allow a payoff at any time. They have to pay a 1% sort of yield maintenance fee, right? And then the restrictions would remain in effect for 6 years from the date of the issuance of the certificate of occupancy, or as long as our loan stays in, up to 20 years, because our loan term is 20 years.
Is the logic behind that you just think, because I agree, for the most part, I agree. There's no reason someone should take out this money. These are great terms. What is the logic behind allowing someone to remove the affordability if they pay it off? Because it seems like we should be in a position of strength here to say, sorry, if you're taking the money, you're going to stay affordable for 20 years no matter what. Right.
The issue is that we want participation, and unfortunately, these and I think I went through this example at the retreat. There's a project in Rocky Hill that I've done an underwrite on. The restrictions of rents equate to about a $250,000 reduction in NOI each year, right? So if they pay off, and our funds, the terms of our funds are meant to offset that loss. If they pay us off, they're now going to be carrying that $250,000 loss in income forward, right? So if they try to sell it, they're losing it. I mean, 250 at a 5 cap is 5 million in value, right? So we didn't want to disincentivize participation. So we thought about what's the best way to couch this, and what's the minimum term that we would want to have our affordability restrictions in place. And with the commissioner's help, we determined that a 6-year minimum is what we would require.
Okay, thanks.
Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, Pat, just picking up on Heidi's comments earlier, obviously, banks do get a benefit, but I am curious as the process that you went through to select banks. I know that you mentioned that George was a part of it, but one, how did you how did those banks get to the table, and how many are there?
Yeah, Tim, we're not excluding anybody. Any bank that when we do the NOFA to let everybody know these funds are available and what the terms are for participation. If a bank is willing, or a lender, it doesn't even have to be a bank. If a lender is willing to execute the participating lender agreement with us, they can participate in the program. So we're not excluding anybody. We kept it to, we started out with just a couple local banks to just kind of test the waters, and then we expanded it to some larger banks. The list of banks that I mentioned in the presentation is just the initial list of outreach that we're going of banks that we're going to do outreach on. And Commissioner Perez was very helpful in helping in putting that together. But after that, we are going to be hiring a business development person who will be reaching out to every financial institution that participates in this industry in Connecticut. So we're not going to exclude anybody from from participating if they're willing to provide their due diligence.
So after this resolution, just to expand a little bit about the Pat's comments, is that we will be meeting actually with the banks and go over the program with the banks. And Commissioner Perez added some other banks, credit unions. We didn't have credit unions, so he went over the list that we compiled, and so now we have a comprehensive list. And as Pat said, if there are other banks outside of Connecticut that are working and participating, we can talk to them as long as they're willing to engage with the participation agreement.
Thank you.
Sure.
Alexandra, do you have another question? Is your hand is still up from previously?
Oh, sorry, it's just up from previously. I will take it down.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, John, could you do the roll call, please?
Yep. Jerry Abrahams,
Aye.
Cynthia Butts, Wendy Clark. Wendy, I think I missed you, but I think you said aye.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dahm?
Aye.
Thank you. Phil DeFranco?
Aye.
Heidi DeWeingart?
Aye.
Claudio Gualtieri?
Aye.
Timothy Hodges?
Aye.
Catherine McKinnon?
Aye.
Commissioner Mascara Bruno?
Yes.
Commissioner Perez? Franklin Perry? Chelsea Ross? Sarah Sanders?
Aye.
Lisa Tepper Bates? Greg Ugalde?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you, John. And Pat, could you go to the next item on the agenda?
Certainly. And I'd like to start by saying thank you for your participation, the board's participation and discussion in the workforce housing program. It's a much needed program in Connecticut. So thank you for everyone. The next resolution that we have before you is to authorize the conversion of 33 public housing units at Fairgate Apartments. Fairgate is in Stamford. It's an LIHTC deal from 2009. It has a total of 90 units. 35 of them are unrestricted, and 55 of the units are affordable to residents at 25, 50, and 60% of AMI. The project is run by Charter Oak Communities, Stamford Housing Authority. There are no compliance issues. The properties are in very good condition. The original mortgage amount was $6.9 million, and its current outstanding balance is $4.955 million. It's at 4% and it's set to mature in 2040. The property has healthy reserves and again, is performing very well. Of the 55 affordable units at Fairgate, 22 of them are Section 8 and 33 are public housing units. Converting the 33 public housing units will eliminate the public housing recertification process, and then the recertification process will be consistent for all 55 units. Section 8 subsidy is a much more reliable subsidy. There's less chance of it being curtailed, so it's a better subsidy for the housing authority, especially as it goes into any future needs for recapitalization. I want to point out that the residents will not experience any rent increases because of this conversion, so all the rents will remain as they are. The reason that I'm bringing this to you today is that CHFA was asked to review the request for subordination a little late in the game, but upon request, we determined that board approval was necessary for a RAD conversion on a property that has CHFA debt in place. HUD has agreed to extend the closing date, which was originally set for last week, but they've extended it to September 1st. And as long as Charter Oak Communities can close on this conversion by that time, they will not have to resubmit a new application. The existing loan documents will not be modified. A HUD use agreement will be added to the property, providing a priority deed restriction provision over all other existing loan documentation. And that's primarily meant to protect the HUD subsidy against foreclosure of any loans. Releases from the replacement reserve will now need HUD approval, but we have numerous properties that we already do that with, so it's not problematic at all. We did a very similar project very similar conversion in 2016, and the board approved that subordination of the CHFA loan. It was on Southwood Square. It's also in Stanford. It was phases 1, 2, and 3. And in 2017, CHFA approved RAD conversions for 5 LIHTC only developments in the portfolio, and those do not need board approval. So this is not a new process for us. Staff recommends allowing Fairgate to convert the 33 public housing units to the RAD program and subordinate the existing CHFA loan documents to the HUD use agreement. Transaction provides consistency and stability in the subsidy available to the development. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Pat. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution presented by Pat?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Questions?
I do have one, Pat. So are we still going to see the same number of 25 AMI and so on for the unit breakdown? That all stays the same?
Everything stays the same, Greg. It's the different source of subsidy, so it has a little bit different requirements. The project-based Section 8 subsidy that they're requesting is going to be a long-term commitment, whereas the public housing it's a less stable subsidy. Let's put it that way. So we've seen a lot of the industry move toward this RAD conversion.
Should this require board approval going forward? It seems like it's just it's a 6 of 1, half dozen. I mean, it's not quite, but it's still going to be affordable. It still meets our criteria. It's still. So is this something maybe we want to think about changing?
I was expecting a question along those lines, and we are in the process of reviewing all of our procedures in multifamily. And as part of what we will present either later this year or early next year, we'll make a recommendation as to how these should be treated. Heidi, it was my first reaction when I saw it,
right?
Not having seen it before, but it is clearly required that we bring this to board, and we're not at a point where I'm ready to make a recommendation that we change.
All right, I would think about it.
Definitely. Thank you.
Any other comments or question?
Would this change increase the cash flow to the project? Which would,
No, it should not increase cash flow to the project.
but it doesn't decrease either. So
It doesn't decrease it, no.
impact the cost of the
It seems to
capital.
me it just reduces some paperwork, right?
It reduces some paperwork, but it also gives them a more stable subsidy.
Right, okay.
Public housing is not, the public housing program hasn't been funded well over the years. Section 8 has been. And so you can count on the Section 8 money.
Sorry to interrupt. My name is Tanisha Smith. I'm a Bridgeport recipient of housing funds from Park City Communities, and I just wanted to join the meeting, be able to comment when I can. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay,
Any other comments or questions from the board members? Dawn, could you do a roll call, please?
Of course. Jerry Abrahams,
Aye.
Cynthia Butts, Wendy Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Dawn,
Yes.
Phil DeFronto,
Yes.
Heidi DeWeingart,
Aye.
Claudio Gualtieri,
Aye.
Timothy Hodges,
Aye.
Catherine McKinney,
Aye.
Commissioner Mosquero Bruno,
Yes.
Commissioner Perez, Franklin Perry, Chelsea Ross, Sarah Sanders,
Aye.
Lisa Tupper Bates, Greg Ugalde.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you for all your work, and thank you to the board members for attending this meeting. And the last item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the July 27th board meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved, Wendy.
Thank
Second.
you, Wendy. Thank you, Greg. All those in favor, can you
Aye.
raise your hand?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Dawn, you have that? Minutes are approved.
I do, thank you.
And can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Greg. Raise your hand. Those in favor to end the meeting. Thank you very much.
thank
Aye.
you.
Thank you.
You
Bye-bye.
guys.
Great job, Pat.
Thank you.